aware of the need for a complete count. So really, I'm here. I'm sure that lots of you are well aware of what's taking place with the census. Today, some of you not so much, but I'm going to roll through this a little bit, but I just want to start off and talk about the census is about money, justice, and power. So I'm going to start off this conversation and let you guys know that basically on the line is $675 billion of federal funding that goes towards all of your programs that support the people here in the city of Hollister. Section 8 housing, Title I funds, free and reduced lunch, Medicaid, the list goes on, transportation, it's all here on the table. So we have this big pot of money that the federal government's giving it out. And the real question is the city of Hollister going to get their fair share? And the way that the city of Hollister gets their fair share of this federal funding is that every person in this community is counted. So with that, I'm going to begin my presentation. Hopefully I'm getting it. This is a new, all right, let's give this a whirl. So there I am, Tori Del Favreau. I'm with the Census Bureau. And why we do a census? Well, I'll start off. It's in the Constitution. So it's Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution. Somehow this is off. I apologize. There you go. There we go. And what's happened tonight is we have had democracy in action on several different issues. So the other thing along the line of it being in the census is the 435 congressional seats are appropriated through the decennial census, which takes place on August 1st, 2020. So we have a choice to make here in California. Everybody needs to show up and be counted. Otherwise, some of those congressional seats could go to other states. Food for thought. Additionally, locally, I know that the County of San Benito uses some of the census tracts on voting. Very important for your districting. So it is imperative that we count everyone in your community. As I said before, it's really important that we count everyone once and only once and in the right place. So if you have migrant families that are moving through town and they are here working in the city of Hollister on April 1st, 2020, you want them counted. Every person that's counted, that federal funds goes this way. So here you guys are, the County of San Benito. If you probably haven't taken time, if you go on the census.gov website, there is some really neat information about your community that you can slice and dice high school graduation rates. Sometimes fire departments use census data to apply for grants for a new fire truck. There are a lot of things on the lines with your census data. So additionally, some schools use it. There's some pretty neat programs on there. So take some time and tool around on the website because I think that you will be able to pull some information for your county. My goal is I am a community partnership specialist. And so basically what I am here to do, as it says on the slide, is educate, encourage, and engage. So you guys have a resolution on your agenda to pass that basically says, you know, we're going to support census efforts. We're all going to dig in. The County of San Benito has already passed this, and they had to do that to receive state funding. I believe it's about $75,000 for census efforts in San Benito County. Each county has a different piece of the pie. So what I'm asking of you guys tonight with your resolution is a complete count committee. You guys have a very active community here in Hollister. And for the census to reach the hard-to-count populations, it is going to take trusted voices in your community to talk to people and let them know the why on the census. And the why on the census is whatever it means to that community member, whether it's more money for, you know, housing's too expensive here, so more grants for Section 8 housing, whether it's that you need free and reduced lunches in your schools. We have the County of San Benito is doing a complete count committee, and I believe the date on that, actually I know the date on that, is February 21st at Veterans Hall from 3 to 5. Miss Alonzo from the County of San Benito is basically kicking that off. And I know she needs support, and I know this community wants to support her. I'll be brief because things will come out. The The census is going to be done this year via the internet. The goal is to have most people self-respond. The interesting piece about the internet self-response and the phone self-response is that live data will be coming back to the communities on areas that have had a low response. So that means during this time of the year, community members like yourself, other trusted voices, nonprofits, churches, et cetera, can go out and tailor messages and say, hey, you guys know your community best. Where do these people go that live in this area? Do they go to this food mart? Do they get their checks cashed here? You know, where can we tailor our messaging to make sure that we are having everyone in this community counted? Linguistically, we will have lots of options with this census. It's up to 59 languages. Just some trivia, it had to be at least 60,000 people in the nation that spoke that language for it to be counted. We're going to have 12 languages plus English on the internet option. And then all of that, there's going to be options to make sure that you're capturing people in your community that potentially don't have one of those languages. There'll be queues for them to call into a number and reach somebody that speaks that language to take their census. Jobs. We need census workers. We need local census workers. We need people in your community that know your community going out there. Applying for these jobs, they can apply for the jobs now. They'll basically sit kind of in a holding pattern until it's time to activate those jobs, but address canvassing is happening late this summer. Additionally, we're going to have enumerators that are taking place next year. So we need the workers as well. And I know it's a tight job market, but this is a fantastic opportunity. You just have to be 18 to apply. You do have to be a citizen. But it's a great opportunity for people that are looking for a little part-time work, extra income. I would encourage you guys to reach out to your community members and find ways through your city that you can advertise the importance of the census. Because at the end of the day, every person that's undercounted, it's about $2,000 in federal funds that is lost for the city of Hollister. And if you sit here and crunch numbers and say, you know, $30,000 is on the line for the spay and neuter program that you talked about, you know, it's $2,000 per person per year for 10 years. So every person that's undercounted is $20,000 in federal funds. So food for thought. Again, here on the website is how to apply for these jobs. I'm kind of cooking through this really quickly because you guys have had a long agenda tonight, so I'm really not trying to overlook it, but I just know that you guys have had a full agenda, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I really do highly encourage people to go to the census website, and I do highly encourage people to listen, to pay attention, to look at deadlines, to be involved in the complete count committee that this County of San Benito is putting on. As I mentioned before, the supervisors passed it earlier this month, a resolution, so they can get state funds from the state of California. Some other cities have also put in some of their own funds, so they can make sure that everybody in their community is counted. Lots of opportunities. Your staff members have been fantastic. I really do want to thank Christine and Mary. They've put forth some great ideas on how to basically trickle down this messaging through the community, and you guys are lucky to have both of them. They're fantastic. So there I am. I'm at the end of my pitch. I'm hoping that you guys are taking home the importance of the census. I appreciate you guys considering having this resolution on here. It just basically is an opportunity for all of you guys to say that we realize the opportunity for our census and for our community members and what it means for funding and appropriation of congressional seats, and basically how that trickles down additionally through the assembly. So hopefully we're doing a lot of democracy and justice and money, power, and social justice.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any questions from council? Do we have any speaker cards? Or Vice Mayor Richmond?
A short comment. Thank you for your patience. I'm fully invested in the census. Thank you.
Thank you.
Speaker cards?
Alias Salinas.
Good evening. I just have a question. I want a clarification. I think she went through it too quickly. I didn't understand the March 23rd deadline. We have a lot of migrant families that go from Arizona to Southern California to our area. So how is that going to work if it's that I know I saw March 23rd. So the people in Arizona start moving to California right around Easter time. So I just wanted clarification on that.
You're right. I did jump through this quickly. I apologize if I wasn't clear. So the internet response opens on March 23rd of 2020. So that is the first chance for people to self-respond. So what's going to end up happening is after that, the census is where people are living most of the time on April 1st. So, for example, if you have a child that splits time equally between mom and dad, it physically is where they are on April 1st. If they're 60% with dad, then they're with dad most of the time. With migrant farm workers, it's a little bit more complicated, but it's where they are on that day. The census is well versed that there are a lot of challenges with the homeless population, with the migrant population, with group quarters. So they have plans in place to go out and count, farm labor camps, homeless populations. They desperately know that it is crucially important that these people are counted in your community because they require community dollars. So the messaging is that with you, the community members, you're taking this messaging and you're understanding that these people need to be counted, and you're helping the census by becoming a census worker, by partnering on the Complete Count Committee, things along those lines. I hope I'm answering your question. And there's a lot of more information on the census website, but if people are living in your community on April 1st, 2020, there's also an opportunity, there's a non-response follow-up. So if for some reason certain areas of the community had a low response rate, the non-response follow-up team will go into that community and make sure that they are counting everyone and going through. There's a lot of opportunities to do that.
Okay, thank you. Any other speaker cards? All right.
I have no respect.
Any other questions or comments from council? Is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion, resolution number 2019-15, a resolution of City Council, City of Hollister, support of the San Benito County 2020 Census Complete Count Committee as presented in the agenda by Development Services.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much. We're going to move to item F2.
Drop all my stuff here. Good evening, and Christina, I do have a power plant on the screen. The item before you tonight is a initiation of a pre-zone as well as an initiation of a general plan amendment for a property that's located south of Apricot Lane. Is it just the arrow here?
Point it this way. Point it up there. I'm just kidding.
I don't. It's not on.
Gotta have some fun.
Yeah.
Sorry, everyone.
That's all right. So much for that.
I think it's. Oh, wait.
There you go.
Turn it off.
Here we go. Okay. So this property, as I mentioned, is located south of Apricot Lane at the westerly terminus, and it's approximately 4.69 acres. It is located in the county, but it's contiguous to the city on the east and north side. Here's our zoning map. And then it's also on the west side, partially contiguous to the city limits, and it's within our sphere of influence. The property, in 2009, there was a mitigated negative declaration adopted for the San Benito River Greenway or River Parkway Trail. This map is from that mitigated neg deck, and it shows the trail having two trailheads within the city limits. One in the north is at Bridge Road, and the one on the south was located on the subject property. And it showed a parking area of about kind of the northern half or northern third of this property. And then the trail kind of meanders through the wastewater treatment plant up to Bridge Road and then continues on in the county. After the 2009 mitigated neg deck for the trail, in July of 2013, the Planning Commission adopted a resolution which approved a use determination for the property to the north of this property, just right north of APRICOT Lane, which is now the APRICOT Lane subdivision, and it's built out. And you can see this is the map of the APRICOT Lane subdivision and the use determination that was approved by the Planning Commission in 2013 for this property. The general plan, I believe I also have that on here, might be a little hard to see, but you can see that there's a property to the north of the subject property, which is the APRICOT Lane subdivision. And it's divided pretty much evenly in half in our general plan. One side is open space, one side is low-density residential. And the use determination determined that, as you can see, the open space buffer is about 100 feet wide, and it forms what's now Apricot Park. And so the Planning Commission at the time decided that the general plan just meant to have a large open space buffer between the residential and the open space. It wasn't necessarily to divide it perfectly in half. And so upon the approval of the Apricot Lane use determination, the subdivision was later approved, and now it's completely built out. So moving back to the subject property, we have a slightly similar situation, but our subject property is actually fully designated open space in our general plan. And so in August of 2018, just this last year, the Planning Commission adopted another resolution which approved a use determination in a similar way, that the intent of the general plan was to provide an open space buffer connection to the River Parkway Trail, but it wasn't necessarily to have it completely open space. This was the Planning Commission's determination. And so this was based off of 4 kind of main points. The designation in the general plan as fully open space. At the time of the 2005 general plan being approved, there was grant funding, and I'm not entirely certain of the exact details, but whether it was that we got the grant and declined it or didn't get the grant, it fell through, and the city's plan at that time with the grant money was to purchase the property and then use it entirely for open space. But being as we didn't get the funding, then this use determination in 2018 would allow the property owner to utilize their property, that instead of it just being an open space, which the previous property owner intended to sell it to the city, but that's not their intent anymore. The second point that the Planning Commission made and took into consideration with their use determination was that the River Parkway plan, the trail, was to provide a parking lot area and trailhead, but it was approved 4 years before the Apricot Lane subdivision was approved. And so on the southern side of Apricot Park, there is a parking lot with, I believe it has 17 parking spaces, which is significantly more than was already planned for in the trail. And our use determination and the applicant on our subject property today has indicated that they would not only be willing to extend that parking for the Apricot parking lot, but also provide on the Summer Drive extension to the south, like parallel parking for the trail. sorry. This here is our use determination, and then this is the pre-zone and general plan amendment that's proposed before you to initiate tonight. And so the parallel parking would be on that western side of Summer Drive, and the open space would continue the trail, continue Apricot Park, provide that open space buffer, and if for some reason the property to the west, they decided that they didn't want to be part of the River Parkway Trail, it could provide an alternate route for the trail in this area as it's originally proposed to go on the property to the west. So it could provide some leeway in the future, some options for the trail so that it could be continued. The proposal tonight is for a initiation of pre-zone and then the general plan amendment as mentioned, which would change the open space to R2, which is our two-family residential, so for duplexes or duets. And then that would be a medium density designation in the general plan, as it allows for 8 to 12 as opposed to 1 to 8, but it would be rezoned R2 as opposed to R3. And then the final consideration that was taken, into account was that the county's designation for this property is also residential. So in changing our general plan, it would be in compliance with the county, so they would kind of reflect each other, as opposed to one being open space and the other being residential. And the county's residential designation is 8 to 20 units per acre. And the county and city general plans encourage, annexation or out of jurisdiction sewer service agreements for properties such as this that are contiguous to city limits and also within the sphere of influence. So hoping that I kind of kept it brief, but with the Planning Commission's approval of the development as open space and residential from back in August, the applicant is requesting approval tonight from the council to initiate the pre-zoning of the property, pursuant to the site plan as you see on your screen, to open space on the western side and two-family residential R2, and to initiate also a general plan amendment which would change the land use plan map to reflect this two-family R2, medium density, and open space. And then pending council's approval tonight, the applicant would then file an application for pre-zone and general plan amendment, which would go to the Planning Commission for recommendation to council, and then it would be an ordinance brought to the council for a first and second reading before going to LAFCO for approval of the annexation, at which point, once all that process was done and the property was potentially annexed into the city, then some kind of map or site and architectural would be brought to the Planning Commission for the development of the property. So staff is recommending that you authorize the initiation of pre-zone, application 2018-7, and the initiation of the general plan amendment 2019-1, and we will then process the pre-zone and general plan amendment as suggested. Do you have any questions for me?
Any questions from council? I do have a comment. We've gone through several of these and find ourselves in trouble and later because now it's just more and more residential growth. The plan originally called for a fully open space area.
Correct.
Park or whatever it is. I can remember early on when I first got on the council the desperate need for parks in our community, and this area was one of those that they really put a spotlight on of we don't have any open space over here and there's nothing we can do about it. Actually, there was something we could do about it, right? And we should have done something about it. I don't think rezoning right now to build more homes is the answer. We need to start using some of the open space put into use for the public. That would be a great part of this area. It would enhance it. Rezoning right now, I just feel we shouldn't be doing. We have issues already with our tax sharing agreement with the county. There's no reason to keep making things worse in our community. We should be doing everything we can to get these open spaces used for the public. And I just can't believe that last year was, hey, let's change from open space to let's build something here. Especially knowing this was an area that was in desperate need of a park or larger space, not just a kids' park. We've done well in making sure that's happening, but an area that the public can really use and enjoy. So I just don't understand why there's this rush to just rezone everything to put homes onto every vacant lot we have in our community. Vice Mayor Richmond?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I didn't mean to ace you out. You didn't see me. I had my hand up before you start talking. It's okay. It's okay. I just didn't want you to think I was trying to come in the back end.
No problem.
You know, the timing of this is really bad. We've got so much stuff up in the air. I know somebody might say, well, don't worry about what's up in the air, but I think it's important. For instance, we have a growth management ordinance that's currently sitting at HCD at the state, and they promised to move on it aggressively maybe next week. We don't know how it's going to come out, and if it does, depending on how it comes out, any proposal may have to fight for allocation points, and we don't know what those are going to be. If we start down the road, I'm worried about, here comes the ordinance, everything's fine, and this project's too far down the road to back up and get in line for allocation points and see how it rates up. The second issue we have, of course, is that the talk of the town when we were up in Sacramento was about the governor's plan for affordable housing and how many affordable houses he's going to require, not ask for, but require that places build, and we don't know where we stand on that. So saying, well, we're going to zone it for this or we'll zone it for that is, I think, at this point in time is a little ambitious. And the third item is we've got a really old general plan that's been dying for an update, and we're gonna take that old general plan that said this is open space, and we're just gonna take that part of it and say, well, we changed our mind. It wasn't the original intent, but without the general plan planning. So I think the timing is particularly poor for this for a request that requires a general plan that takes away open space, that takes away space that we may have to change to residential, but may be forced to change it to affordable housing at various strata from the state. So that's my comments on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other Councilmember Census?
Just to echo what Vice Mayor Richmond is saying, it's just not a good time for us right now. We just got back from Sacramento. There's lots of talk about what kind of housing implications we're going to see from the state coming down the line. I've walked this district probably 3 times. I can tell you that everybody's pretty much saying they don't want any more development over there right now. I understand that there's a need for this type of development, but what's going to guarantee us that it's going to be duplexes and they're not going to turn around and sell it and we're going to have more single-family homes?
The guarantee would be that when we come back with a pre-zone application, it would be to pre-zone it R2, which is two houses on each lot. That's the zoning. So we have R1, which is low density, single family. We have R2, which is specifically 2-family residential, and then we have R3 and R4, which are medium and high. So those kind of we have some of our small lot subdivisions are in medium density, but the R2 zoning, when we came back with the pre-zone application that would go to Planning Commission, recommend to Council for an R2 specifically, it would be it would be R2. It would pretty much guarantee duplexes, and we could potentially see a CUP for a conditional use permit for something higher, like the fourplexes on maybe a few lots.
And what's the timeline on that?
The timeline, let's say starting now, if today the council approved the initiation, we would get the applicant to submit the pre-zone and general plan amendment applications. And then they would go to our DRC, and we're past our deadline. So let's say they go to DRC at the beginning of March. They would go probably through one round of comments at least, go back to DRC in April, and then we would assume that their application would have met all our comments, and so then it would go to Planning Commission in April, and then it would come back to the council. The Planning Commission would recommend it to the council, come to the council in March for the first reading, and then the second reading would go to the next council meeting. So we'll say we're at the end of, or May, sorry, I went back a month. So we're at the end of May, and then if the council approved the pre-zone, the ordinance, it would take 30 days to go into effect. After the 30 days, so now we're in June, it would go to, the applicant would submit an application to LAFCO that the city would process and send to LAFCO probably in July. LAFCO would have their meeting maybe in July also, or August, and then LAFCO would approve or disapprove the annexation. If they approved it, it would take into effect in 30 days. So in September, at the very fastest, we would see this tentative map or a site and architectural go to Planning Commission, and that would take another 3 months or so for approval. So by the end of the year, the very fastest, without a CEQA document requirement, which it is smaller than 5 acres, but we'd have to look and make sure that it met all the other qualifications for an exemption. Potentially the end of the year, you could see an approval.
Again, I just think we're a new council up here. We really want to hear back from the public. Mm-hmm. We've got a town hall meeting coming up. We want to hear what their thoughts are. Mm-hmm. We've got to see what's coming down from the state. I don't feel comfortable annexing more land right now. And another point that he brought up is the tax sharing agreement between the county and ourselves is not probably where we want it right now at this point. So we've got a lot of other things that we need to work on before we start annexing in more land. I'm not saying I'm completely against it. I understand there's a need for this type of housing, and I'm not saying it's a bad project. I'm just saying it's just not a good one for right now.
Thank you. Well, I did review this when I was on the Planning Commission. Okay, we always hear, we need affordable housing, we need rentals. Well, here it is. You have a good area of open space there. This project complies with the general plan. It's infill. It's flat infill. It's providing an opportunity for a more affordable unit. It's providing the opportunity for rentals. If you just talk about it and never do it, that's why we're behind the 8 ball. I think it's a good location. It's actually compatible with the existing area. I'm a planning gal. I like to see planning done. I don't like to see property just sitting without a plan because, you know, if it's in the county, who knows what happens. I like control. I like control in the city of Hollister. So I'm inclined to be favorable for this application based on its compliance with the general plan that I am not in agree that is so out of date. It's underutilized. Not saying we're not going to change it, amend it, but the fact is it never played out. So those are my comments. For me, it's a planning issue, and I think the green belt there is giving us quite a bit of open space. You need a trailhead. It's a good place for it. Unfortunately, we did not get the grant. So we did not get the grant to do what we wanted to do. So that's a fact. So now you have Plan B. It's not our property. It's somebody else's property. Again, mixed use, affordable housing is what I'm after, along with rentals. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Is there any speaker cards? Okay. Is there a motion on this item? Oh, you have
Mr. Mayor,
further
if I
comment?
may. Yeah, just just to follow up on Eva's presentation, which is very thorough and very good. Thank you. The pre-zoning, because it's in the county, it would require the initiation of pre-zone. In order for us to move forward, we're starting to study if it requires an environmental report pursuant to CEQA. We would have to get your go-ahead for the pre-zone. Majority vote would start that. Because we do have to make a change on the general plan for it to have the open space where it's located, where it's proposed, and the medium density residential, it does require 4/5 vote in order for us to begin that initiation. So if it is the will of the council, that would be what we would be required in order for us to start the process. Just wanted to emphasize that.
Thank you. All right, was there a motion on this item? All right, there's no motion. So this time, this item does not have the support it needs to move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're going to move to item F3.
Wait a minute. We're not going to vote on it?
There was no motion. It died because of lack of a motion.
Well, it's a moot point because I see the writing on the wall. So is that a good no motion or a denial? City Attorney? I don't like no motions. Make a motion. As you said, take a vote.
So to answer your question, there's no action on the item.
So there's no, because nobody's making a motion.
Correct.
But if somebody made a motion, it looks like it wouldn't pass. So that's what I'm saying. It just don't make the motion. How about if I want to be on record as
I can't
supporting
judge
it?
that.
Okay.
Yeah, it did not have a motion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to move to item
What happened to it?
F3.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Good evening. At the City Council special meeting of January 14, 2019, the Council directed staff to have a special Planning Commission meeting for the adoption of the Planning Commission bylaws to include the term of the commissioners, commission members, to be concurrent to that of the council members of which the commissioner is representing. The Planning Commission had a special meeting on Thursday, January 17th, 2019, in which they adopted resolution number 2019-1, recommending to the City Council the adoption of the Planning Commission bylaws. Planning Commission bylaws are attached as Exhibit A on your packet. Staff recommends that the City Council review the request and approve the resolution adopting the Planning Commission bylaws. Also, staff recommends that the Council direct staff to make the proper amendments to Chapter 2 of the Hollister Municipal Code, and section particularly on Planning Commission, for consistency with the bylaws, such as the term of office. Thank you. Are there any questions for staff?
Thank you. Any question from council? No. Do we have any speaker cards? Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion, Resolution 2019-17, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Hollister adopting the Planning Commission bylaws, and the associated documents should be changed as indicated by the staff.
Okay. There is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Who pushed the button first?
You did. I didn't.
I think Roland.
I'm always louder.
The motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. All right. We're going to go to item G1, reports from City Council members regarding their committees. Councilmember Lenore?
This is where I speak, right, Mayor?
Yes. This is on your committees.
On my committees. Yeah. Well, how about this? I have something to say.
The next one for information will be on the next on
yeah.
2. You can
well,
do information.
I don't know if you can correct me and you can stop me here, but Councilman Resendez, I owe you an apology for the last LAFCO meeting where I raised my voice to you. It was a poor example of leadership. I hope that you'll accept my apology, knowing that I pledge to never do that again. Now, it wasn't what I was saying, it was how I did it. So I hope that you know that I definitely will work with you, and next time I want to have a discussion with you, it won't be out on the sidewalk yelling. So please accept my apology for that. I teach my kids not to do that. I'm glad they didn't see it. That's all I want to say on that.
Thank you.
I want the public to know that I'm committed still to working with Council Member Resendez. Okay, this is where we talk about things that we did.
Committees, ad hoc committees, or any committees you attended meetings.
Okay, well,
Public events
it's not
is for the
about
number
talking
two.
about what I want to discuss on a future agenda.
That'll be on the second,
Thank
the
you.
next item.
So we did attend the new mayors and council members.
That'll be on the next item.
Oh, that's on the next one. Oh, that's not.
That's okay. We'll get used to it.
I have not met because we were
Okay,
in
no
over
problem.
there.
Not a problem.
Yes, soon I hope I can report on my committees.
Council member Spencer.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. We're all learning.
I did have a meeting, but it was canceled. It was the PRWFPA. Don't have to tell you what it all means. But it was canceled. It was January 9th, and it was canceled. And that's the only meeting I had.
Shed.
Tahoe River Water.
Shed or like. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I didn't write it all down.
Okay.
It's got the longest time.
It does. It does.
Do you have any ad hoc meetings at all?
No.
Okay. All right. Vice Mayor Richmond,
None, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Resendez.
We've been meeting with on the animal control. So just reporting back that we are working diligently with all the members that are involved in that. We've met with the police department, animal control. We've met with Pet Friends and Heading Home Rescue. We are planning on going over to look at the animal shelters, hopefully in Santa Cruz and in San Martin, Councilmember Spencer and I, so that we can see how they conduct their business and how we can provide better services to our community here.
Thank you very much. The committee meeting I attended was LAFCO, and as Councilmember Lenore pointed out, it was a very exciting meeting. Basically, the committee voted 3-2 to go ahead with the annexation of some property out there to build more single-family homes, and I'll leave it at that. All right, we're going to go to the next item here. Item 2, informational reports. Councilmember Lenore, this is where you get to tell everything.
Okay. Well, you already heard my public apology for my not good thing there I did. I'll tell you what, I'm hearing about the Rebel Rally, so I'd like to hear more about it on a scheduled agenda. I know it's proposed for a public building, and I haven't seen anything. I'd like to know a little bit about that from the city stance. Also, I had brought up a couple of months ago the prospect of having an air show, and I haven't heard anything back from Mr. Chambliss about that issue, and I'd like to know your feelings as well at a public meeting to know, is it good, yay or nay? Then one more item is we kind of lost track of our permanent lighting and music downtown. It also has not come back after it was supposed to come back, cutting the music expense with the permanent lighting. So I'd like that report. We shouldn't just leave things dangling out there. And then one last thing I want to say, and I talked to the mayor about this. I rode the train to Sacramento, and it broke my heart to see all the homeless encampments, abandoned homeless encampments. You would not believe the garbage that's left behind on the homeless encampment, and it was particularly bad in the larger cities. I was almost in tears when I saw that, and I know now that we simply, for our community, we must always fight that fight and make sure that we do clean it up. We have taken steps for maybe contracting with the firm to do that, but Mr. Mayor, I would definitely work with you on anything to do with the homeless, providing them things and such after what I saw.
Excellent. We talked about that
Yes.
next.
I was a little heartbroken to see our Mother Earth in that condition.
Okay.
That's all I have to say tonight.
Councilmember Spencer?
Just that did I get the first one to talk about it? We did spend a few days in Sacramento learning a lot since we are a new city council. I want to thank our city clerk for arranging our stay. It was
that was Billy Abear's assistant. Billy Abear's assistant, Daisy Aranda, did that.
Yes.
Well, Mr. Rivera, you did a great job.
Thank you.
And I think we had a good time. Stop. We had a good time.
I did.
That's it for me.
Okay. Vice Mayor Richmond?
Thank you. I also attended a very interesting seminar in Sacramento by the League of California Cities, which had the components of sexual harassment training and also ethical training, and I think those were really, really interesting and very good, specifically very good. I'd like to report that I had 2 ex parte meetings with people who do have information, issues that come before the council. One is Stuart S. Fahmy, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, and the other one was Mr. Hugh Bickle, both of which concerned development. They wanted to talk to me. None of the information that was passed to or fro was not on the public record. It was all on the public record, so I have nothing to report in that matter. I would like to agendize for the future, if I can get a second person to back me up, putting together a code of conduct for the city council and also implementing some of the ethics recommendations that came from the training that we had there at Sacramento. I thought some of it was excellent. Making mandatory reports on ex parte meetings and similar items, and other items about the code of conduct for the council. So I hope somebody will second that so that we can get it on the agenda and talk about putting it together. And I think the final report I'd like to make, I know we're late, but I really have to give credit. I went to the Martin Luther King breakfast that Bethany Church had in Gilroy on Monday, and it honored 4 people, and they're very closely related to Hollister, some of them. 2 Freedom Awards, Miss Nana Sanchez, who was taught Aztec dancing, pre-Columbian Aztec dancing for 15 years to young people at Hollister, and you probably saw the people she taught performing in some of the parades downtown. And another second Freedom Award went to Zeke Lopez, and for those of you who don't know, he has taught boxing for over 26 years at Bulldog Boxing here in Hollister. And the third award was a Lifetime Achievement Award that went to Miss Rolanda Pierre Dixon, who's a retired assistant district attorney for Santa Clara County, and had a lot of interesting stories to tell about working there when she first came aboard. And the fourth one was the pastor of the Bethany Church there in Gilroy, whose name is Dr. Gerald E. Harris. And like I said to Dr. Harris when I was making our part of the presentation, I think I've done a lot until I read his resume. Okay, so Pastor Harris is a former warden for Soledad and Salinas Valley prisons. He's a professor of criminology. He's been a consultant for the United States Department of Justice, a John Maxwell certified speaker, trainer, and mentor. And now he's the pastor of a very active church and group of people there. And I was proud to present those awards on behalf of the city of Hollister. Our Assembly Representative Robert Rivas was there. The district attorney was there. Professor Dr. Rose was there from Galilean College. And it was very busy, and a good time was had by all, and I thank you for the honor. That's it.
Councilmember Resendez?
I, along with Councilwoman Spencer, attended a park planning meeting over at the Firehouse 2 probably about a week ago, I want to say, on a Saturday. This is my second one. The very first one I went to was well attended. It was at night, and I thought possibly since they had it on Saturday, we'd get more people, but that wasn't the case. We had some people, but it wasn't as much as I'd like to see. I'd really encourage the public to get involved in that process, and I'd love to see you guys out there so you can help plan our parks because they're a reflection of your needs. Again, along with all the other councilmen and the mayor up here, I went to the League of California Cities. Big topics out there, other than all of the other issues that we had to go to training for, was they're talking about housing. And as I stated earlier, the mandates that the governor is wanting to put on local control. And homelessness, all of the different resources that are available for us. I think they extended, Mary could probably help me out with that, the HEAP, is that what it is? Heat grant for the homeless population, so that's available for us. But as I understand, we're way ahead of the game here, but we can always use more resources, so I'm excited to see that. Also, I got in touch, or I was contacted by Equality California. They're having a summit for the LGBTQ community in Sacramento on March 15th. I'd like to go attend that if I can and see how we can help advocate for the LGBTQ population, not only on a local level, state level, and federal level. I met with our Assemblyman Robert Rivas while I was up there a couple of times briefly. We talked about, again, all of the hot issues that are coming down and how can we better support him. Also, Councilmember Spencer was there, so we were just collaborating with one another. How can we better support each other and help bring more resources here to our city? And last but not least, I hold no hard feelings towards anybody. I'm actually really glad that we got to go on this training together. I think we all had a chance to network with one another, get to know each other better. I'm seriously looking forward to working alongside everybody up here. So I appreciate that, and just excited for that. Thank you.
Thank you. I, too, went to the meeting in Sacramento, but unfortunately I forgot to book my ticket, so I ended up about 7 miles away by myself, so I had to come back to visit my colleagues early every morning and leave late at night. But I want to thank Christine for pulling that together at the last minute for me. I was on my way to work in Santa Carlos, and I did a U-turn, came back, packed my bags, and headed on up to Sacramento, and it was so worth it. And I was really happy to sit in all the classes we sat in together with my fellow council members and learn so many incredible things that are going on throughout the state. And it was exciting to know we actually have a good city. We really do. When you hear some stories from the other communities, and you're just very proud of who we are. I went to, let me tell the public again, we are going to have our town hall meeting 7 p.m. January 30th at the Vets Building. We want to discuss growth. We want to discuss downtown, and traffic around our schools are going to be on the agenda. Please come out. This is very important that we all hear from you and get your input so we can start planning the vision for our community. Speaking of vision, I also attended the high school strategic plan meeting last Saturday. Took my son with me. He will be starting high school next year, and he was lucky enough to sit with me through the day and learn about what the high school is doing. And I absolutely love how they're doing this, because what they're doing is getting the community involved in their planning for their future. Great strategy. A lot of young people there with good ideas for their high school. Looking forward to attending the next meeting. Also attended a great concert this Saturday in Pacific Grove with our young people, middle schoolers of our local Central Coast Honor Band from our area. And these kids are so good, and I just wish you can all see them, because it's just amazing to see kids that a few years ago can't play an instrument to now playing instruments where you just are amazed at how good they are. I actually posted a video of it. If you want to see it online, go see it online on Facebook. We should really encourage all our young people to take up the arts, music. It really changes their lives, and I was very proud of all our young people and their instructors for all they do. Councilmember Lenore, I want to invite you to a homeless meeting we're going to have on Thursday at 10 o'clock with the county. I will give you the information
Okay.
a little later where it's
Okay.
at. And we are about to make another major step in our homeless issue here in our community. As Councilmember Resendez pointed out, we are so far ahead here locally that a lot of other communities are asking, again, how we did it, and we did it with partnerships. And I'm very excited to have you on board and attending the meetings.
Thank
with
you. I'm
me.
very interested.
And that covers everything I have at this point. City Manager? I do want to say I fully support Marty Richmond's idea. I'd like to see that get onto the agenda.
On the code of conduct and ethics?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. I have nothing to report.
Okay. City Attorney?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No statement.
Okay, Chief?
He bailed.
He's chasing around those cats.
Yeah, I don't know.
City Clerk?
I just wanted to let council be aware that February 4th through 8th, I will be in Long Beach training on our new laserfish upgrade. I will be, I think, bringing that contract to you. I'm going to probably do it on the February 4th meeting, so Nova will actually have to do it for me. But you've already given me approval in the budget. The only reason I am going to bring it forward, Billy, and I know we discussed this already, is because it does change pricing in terms of the maintenance, and I would just feel more comfortable to have that up. I mean, it was the one-time money, and you guys budgeted it for us already, but so that's me gone 4th through the 8th, and then Nova will be attending an MMC Academy for MMC points the 6th through the 8th, so we will be unmanned for those 3 days.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you. We're going to move to item G3 now. Planning Commissioner ratifications. Would that be your item?
For the Planning Commission, currently at the January 14th meeting, Council Member, or District 1, Council Member Lenore appointed Kevin Henderson, and the mayor appointed Roxanne. So on January 16th, Planning Commissioner Pauline Valdivia turned in her resignation. So Council Member Rowland will be making a new appointment to the Planning Commission for District 2. And then we have one applicant for District 2. District 3 appointment is held by Seth Munzer, and Councilmember Honor Spencer can make an appointment to the Planning Commission for District 3. And District 4 appointment is David Huboy, and Councilmember Marty Richmond should make an appointment for that district as well. I have applications from David Huboy, Carrie Johnson, and Gabriel Torres at this time.
Here. Vice Mayor.
Before I make an appointment, let me say something. I know it's late, but just, you don't have to feel sorry for me, but this is 665-page agenda. Last night I read the whole thing. I asked for it. I got it. Okay, I'm here. I want to say something about the appointments. Whether you've served before, whether you serve now on these commissions and these appointments, whether you put in an application and did not get accepted, I want to thank every single one of you who thought enough of this city to volunteer to do the work. I am basically sticking with the appointments that were there when I came on in all three positions, and the reason is I'm new and I'm not ready to appoint new people. I want experienced people. I don't know anybody personally except Mr. Uboy, so I know of his work. And as far as the other members go, the airport, Mr. Houston, and the Parks and Recs, Mr. Goulart, I hope I pronounced that correctly. I don't know him personally, but I did talk to people who worked with him before I decided. So I want to get that thank you in, even if we got to stay here all night long. And as far as District 4 goes, I would like to affirm David Uboy as an appointment for District 4.
So reappointment,
but to expire at the end of my term.
Okay, thank you. And Councilmember Spencer then would
Councilmember Spencer
go through hers also tonight.
is her District 3 is held by Seth Munzer. At this point in time, I don't have a application from him, but I think if that's someone you wanted to have continue, we could ask him to reapply.
Yes, I do want to keep Seth Munzer for planning.
Okay.
So if I can get an application, then we can reappoint him.
Okay.
I'll get a hold of him tomorrow.
Okay. And then.
District 2, Roland, the only one we have right now is Carrie Johnson.
And I'd like to appoint Carrie Johnson to my planning commissioner.
Okay. What other categories do we have?
That's it for G3.
Okay. Is there consensus?
Yes.
Everyone? Yes? Okay. All right. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to item G4.
G4 is the Airport Commission. And for the Airport Commission, we currently need a District 1 appointment. Currently, the Airport Commissioner is Fred Meyer, who was appointed by Councilmember Raymond Friend in 2016. And Councilmember Lenore shall appoint a commissioner to this seat with a term ending December 2020, or concurrent with Carol's term. As of January 14th, District 2 appointed Airport Commissioner Julie Roybal. And January 14th, District 3 appointed Airport Commissioner Robert Scatini. The currently the District 4 appointed Airport Commissioner Stephen Houston, who was appointed by Councilmember Roy Sims in 2016. So Marty Richmond needs to appoint a commissioner to this seat. The mayoral appointment for the Airport Advisory Commission is vacant, and the mayor needs to appoint a commissioner for this vacancy.
Well, I had one, but District 3 stole them.
That's what happened. It's my desire to reappoint Mr. Stephen Houston on the Airport Advisory Commission for a term to end at in 2020, at the end of my term.
I don't have a choice for my district yet.
I don't have. The only county, there's also 2 county seats that I think need to be, according to the Airport Advisory bylaws, it requires recommendation of the Airport Advisory Commission. So the next Airport Advisory Commission meeting is set for January 23rd. Did that already happen? No, it's tomorrow. So the commission will interview applicants and make a recommendation to the council sometime in February on those 2 county seats. I currently have applications for Dean Judd for a county seat, Frederick Meyer, District 1, Jose Martinez, District 2, Margaret Zanzeri in the county, Mark Starrett in the county, and Stephen Houston, District 4.
They have applied.
I have applications for them. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to bring that back in
Mayor?
future meeting or tonight?
Actually, I'm prepared, if you don't mind. Mr. Frederick Meyer, I spoke with him. He's graciously agreed to continue on, so he'll retain that seat.
Okay.
So we have Mr. Houston
Yes.
and Mr. Meyer.
Mr. Meyer.
Yeah, Frederick Meyer.
One. So District 1 is taken care of. District 2 is taken care of. District 3 is taken care
Actually, Roland, you haven't stated. Did you want to appoint Jose Martin? Oh, no, you already did, January 14th. Okay. So tonight, District 1's reappointing Frederick Meyer. District 4 is reappointing Stephen Houston. I have nothing for the mayoral or the 2 county seats at this time.
The names you mentioned, please.
Dean Judd, Frederick Meyer, Jose Martinez. Those are Margaret Zanzeri. She's county. Mark Starrett is also county. So I have 3 county applicants, Dean Judd, Margaret, and Mark
Who
Starrett.
chooses those county?
The county ones are Airport Commissioner, which they'll be deciding on 2 tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah. So that leaves you nobody, because all the
Upper Creek.
all the city ones
Okay.
are already appointed.
Well, we'll keep looking then. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
So
All right.
we'll bring it back in February.
Okay, thank you. So is there a consensus on this item? Yes?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, we're going to move to item 5. For rec.
Item 5 is the Parks and Recreation. And for Parks and Recreation, it's a little bit more of the same. We have no applicants. January 14th, District 1 appointed Elizabeth Deutsch. January 14th, Roland needs to make a new appointment. Christine Graziano, the District 3 appointed commissioner, resigned on December 26th. However, I have heard that she is willing to reapply and would be willing to continue to serve.
And I'm nominating Christine Grazio for.
Without an application, we can't.
Okay, well then I'll get the application and then I'll appoint.
Okay. And then District 4, Carol already appointed Lance Golardi to continue.
Yep.
And then the county seat, which is appointed by the mayor, was Robert Rodriguez II. But I don't think he has reapplied also, but maybe because, again, he's not aware that he needs to. So.
Right, but I do have an application here.
Oh, okay.
From Dawn.
Oh, Dawn. Okay.
So I'd like to appoint her.
Okay. And that's Dawn.
Costoinen.
Thank you.
Course,
Yeah,
Courtesan. It's always difficult.
Kustinen?
Okay.
She's very nice.
For District 4, I'd like to reappoint officially, now that we got everything straight, Mr. Lance Golardi, who served previously, and his term to run concurrent with mine. Excuse me.
Yeah, you did that on January 14th already.
Well,
Yep, that's
one
done.
for good luck.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Does that cover all those bases? Okay, is there a consensus?
Yes.
Okay, we'll move forward. Thank you. We'll go to item G6 now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just asking for 2 members of the council to serve on the Effluent Ad Hoc Committee, which will discuss both industrial wastewater treatment plants and the domestic treatment plant and the workings and administration of both those facilities.
Okay. Did you have a question?
No.
Councilmember? Okay. I'd like to appoint Vice Mayor Richmond and myself, since we're so passionate about sewage. And I think we can do a good job looking into this, because this is a very important committee. That is a very big facility out there. It's over $100 million. So this is going to be a lot of work and a lot of research, so we can bring back information on how the facility runs and all the other news the public wants to know about our facility.
The mayor's just trying to make me feel better because he put me on the sewer committee. I accept.
Don't make me make a joke about it.
Yeah.
Okay, is there a consensus?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we'll move to item G7.
Christine, if you wouldn't mind, I have a slide for this one. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and council members. Tonight, the staff is asking direction from the City Council regarding PC Resolution 2018-48, which would implement the following proposed changes to the RV and Boat Ordinance 1091, Section 1010-030, as approved by the Planning Commission on September 27, 2018. As you can see before you on the screen, these are the 2 changes that were proposed. The first one being eliminating the requirement that recreational vehicles and boats be fully enclosed by stored or parked in the rear or side yard, so that they may be stored or parked in the rear or side yard. Unclosed. Thank you. Sorry, I was reading my notes and it says enclosed, so I was like, not right. So just for clarification, right now they have to be boats and RVs that are stored in the side or rear yard have to be fully enclosed on all four sides. We're asking that this be changed so that people can have them uncovered in the rear side yard. The second is we're bringing the proposed change that the current allowance for our 14 days cumulative throughout the year for unloading and loading in the driveway be changed to a 72-hour period. The current 14-day limit is difficult to enforce, and the discussion by the majority of the former city council and the direction from the majority of the former planning commission was to uphold the current ordinance in regards to not allowing permanent parking or storage in the driveway. 72 hours is the same time frame used by the police department for abandoned vehicles in the public right-of-way and imposes an enforceable time limit for RVs parked in the front yard or driveway. Are there any questions for staff? We also have code enforcement available if you have any questions in terms of enforceability.
Vice Mayor Richmond?
I'm in support of both of those changes, but I would hope to take the message back to the Planning Commission that I also want to make other changes to that, to allow more recreational vehicle parking and more boat parking where the size of the vehicle is not too big and the size of the boat's not too big. The truth of the matter is, one reason these are being changed is they're unenforceable. Nobody's enforcing them. So it's silly to have an unenforceable rule. And the second reason is people here just love the outdoors. That's why many of them live here. And they want to work on their boat when they get home. They don't want to have to go somewhere, pick it up, drag it home, work on it, and then drag it back. Now, if you got a cabin cruiser the size of your garage, maybe we don't want it out in your driveway. But if someone has a boat in their driveway that's no bigger than a pickup truck, which can be in your driveway, what difference does it make? It doesn't block the view. It's not junk. It's worth a lot of money. People are working on it. And so I'll stop the speech there other than to say I think there ought to be more changes to allow people better access. But I'm in support of the two that are recommended.
Okay. Is there any other questions, comments? So just so I'm clear here, so at this point we're still restricting any boats, RVs from driveways.
Correct.
And as Mr. Richmond mentioned, can you bring that back? When we discussed this several years back, the goal was to implement a policy that was fair, and we felt, or a few of us felt at the time, that a boat in a driveway that fits in there is not an issue. A RV that fits in their driveway is not an issue. There are other problems that might happen, but we're trying to get to that point, and for whatever reason we never did. How long will it take to bring that back?
It would probably take about a month. We couldn't take it to this planning commission, but we definitely could the next. In the packet or the exhibits that were provided, I don't know if you got to see Gilroy's ordinance. That's very similar to, I think, what Mr. Richmond is trying to get at. So it'd be very easy to implement something like that.
I think we had looked at San Jose previously.
Yes.
As one of the examples also. So we can continue on and get this thing solved. It's been out there for way too long. It's not fair to some of the people here that do want to know what they can do and not be forced to move it off of their property. Again, as long as people are not living in RVs, I'm not going to be okay with that. As long as those RVs are not sticking out onto the sidewalk or even the boats, we're okay. We can make this thing work and be fair about it. Councilmember Lenore?
Well, I look forward to that item because I have very strong feelings. They're not probably in line with you, but I want to put this bug in your ear. Think we have parking issues now? When you shove those RVs in the driveway, where are the cars going? I'll leave with that, and we'll discuss it in the future.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Any speaker cards on this?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. George Lewis.
Good evening.
Welcome back, Mr. Lewis.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
I've kept the seat warm for you. Ready?
I'm concerned that you are discriminating against RVs and boats. RVs are legally licensed. They're legal anywhere in the state, on any road. They're legal to park on almost any street.
RVs?
Yes.
No.
Up to 72 hours, like a motor vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
Your passenger
72.
car is only allowed to park in most cities up to 72 hours. So basically, when you move an RV into the driveway, you move a car in the driveway, that's fine. He can park there for 12 years, and you don't have any way to get him out of there unless it's not licensed.
Yeah.
But you move the RV into the driveway, and you're saying now you can only say 72 hours, and that's really restrictive because you're moving from a public place to a private place and still putting the restriction on. One of the things is most people will load and unload in the street rather than put it on the driveway if you're going to put a 72-hour limit on. It's not worth taking the effort to move a vehicle into the driveway for 72 hours when you can do it in the street legally in that same time period. So I guess my concern is in your current regulations that you just take out the total of 14 days each year for any legally registered personal vehicle, like any other legally registered personal vehicle. So you can take your pickup, your truck, any personal vehicle can be parked in the driveway without limitations. But you take an RV, which is legally registered to do everything else the personal vehicle is, and put it on a private property, and you put a restriction on it. And I don't think that's a equitable thing to do. And as Mr. Richmond indicated, if you want to work on it, 72 hours isn't much time. You want it convenient to get at. Most recreational vehicles are well maintained. They're prides of the owner as well as boats. And I think it's just a bad move to restrict the parking within the driveway. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom Hawk.
Can I say something?
Absolutely.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I just wanted to bring to your attention in regards to the RVs. I pulled some numbers, and in 2016, we had a total of 256 RVs and boats that were brought to our attention of complaint-driven. In 2017, we had 177. In 2018, we had 84. And just in 2019, we had 9. In 2016, we did put a suspension that you guys had talked about on the RVs. During that time, there was 22 people that we found living in their RVs. What happens is when you have a 14-day extended period, it gives them time to hook up to water and hook up to electrical. It's not easy to track as if it would a 72-hour time frame. 72 hours doesn't give them that much time to be able to unload and connect into electrical and water, and that's the problem that we had within those years. So I just thought I'd share those numbers with you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good evening. I'm Tom Houck. I'd like to bring up the gentleman before me. You know, they are the pride. I have a boat, live on Severance and Villado. I've been parking I've had probably 5 different boats. There are prides. I've been parking for 19 years. I was 40-something years old when I moved here. I'm in my 60s now. You want to change the game on me. I ain't buying it. I pay luxury tax. I keep the boat up, registered, insured, and everything else. It should stay in my driveway, period. Period.
Thank you.
I have no more speakers, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Vice Mayor Richmond.
Can you tell me how you really feel about it? I don't mean to be light about it. Obviously, it's obvious. Yeah,
Thank you.
It's obvious that we feel that we ought to do something about it to allow you to do that. But we also, I want to tell you what the other side of the story is. Just give me a chance. We let you speak. The other side of the story is we just have to be careful because there are people, unlike you, who, especially with the RVs, who violate the rule about living in the RVs. I am very concerned about that. That is a health and safety code issue. I want to do everything I can to let the RV owners park the RVs there without getting problems for their neighbors, but I also want to make sure we enforce enforceable rules. One of the reasons I want to get rid of these rules is they're not even enforceable. There's no one going around checking every 14 days to see if there's anybody, if the RV's been moved.
I can bring something up on the boats. Here
Hang
the
on,
Central
sir.
Coast, we have the coast, we have the Midway,
Yeah, I know.
we have
Okay.
the planet. You got to go further.
Hang on.
I understand. We don't mean to cut you off, but we have a rule that you can't, you get your 3 minutes. You had some time coming. You could have stood there and told me. But I appreciate it. I just want you to know we're not unsympathetic. There will be rule changes, I feel, but I believe they will be reasonable rule changes, and we will try to accommodate everybody, but we also have to make sure that those people who just insist on violating the basic health and safety code rule, because they're bad for everybody. They're bad for everybody who follows the rules. So that's the way I feel about it, and that's why we would like it to go back, I think. Do you? Whoever agrees, fine.
I think believe there was a consensus to allow for the parking, following the rules that we have in place for both the RVs and the boats. Obviously, no living, and I think we have to make sure people are clear what the fine is. If you're going to try to fill that with people to live in, it ain't going to work, it ain't going to fly, and you're going to pay a penalty for that. But I think we can make this thing fair. Again, we have San Jose as an example, or different areas that allow it, and make sure, I think as in before, they had to be registered. Can't just be something they're using as a storage for junk.
Right. I actually pulled up a quick little thing on San Jose just because we had been watching the videos before, trying to make sure that we were prepared for anything that you guys might have asked or addressed some of the things brought up in the past. And for San Jose, the trailers and motorhomes parked on city streets in excess of 72 hours or with vehicle registrations expired over 6 months and 1 day may be cited or towed immediately in their city.
Right.
On the street.
On the street.
On the street.
Talk about the driveway, so we're going to
Driveway's different.
Make the corrections here.
Correct.
Okay. So is there a consensus on that?
So for clarification, okay to keep number 1, need to do some more work on number 2, and then we're going to work on the front driveway, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to go to G9. Oh, I'm sorry, G8. We skipped one. G8.
Why is there so much on this thing? It's too much.
Hey,
Christine,
I've been here till 1 in the morning. This is
too long. Can you put the...
Imagine if he was out there.
No.
This item is a report on a warrant analysis for the intersection of Sally and Park Streets that was done last year. Part of the issue was the desire for traffic calming. Our on-call traffic engineering firm performed a warrant analysis for a 4-way stop at the intersection of Sally and Park and determined that the warrants weren't met. They used criteria which is outlined in your report. Basically, it's based on the frequency of traffic accidents in a year, the flow of the volume of traffic at each approach to the intersection, and speed. And it didn't meet any of the warrants. The report explains, though, that Sally Street is it's a north-south collector in the city, and it's wider than most streets, 50 to 54 feet wide, and it's close to half a mile between the stops. So also, when you say it's a 50-foot wide or 54-foot wide street, what that means is that there's, when you subtract parking, which is about 17 or 8 feet on each side, that's leaving travel lanes in each direction that are about 7 to 19 feet. So it's a comfortable street to speed on. The traffic engineers looked at another option to help calm traffic, and that would be the addition of bicycle lanes. I can never do this. What's off? Oh, that's true. There. Okay. So that's slide showing the section. But Sally Street in our adopted bicycle and pedestrian master plan is shown to be a class 3 bicycle lane. That's where you can see the blue dots. That's a bicycle lane where the bicycle rider is sharing the road pretty much with the car. They don't have a designated place on the road that's protected. The concept, and then this slide is from the bike and pedestrian master plan, and it shows the safe routes to school corridors that are recommended for going to Rancho San Justo Middle School, and then it's pretty similar for the high school. What I'd just like to point out is that San Benito Street is really not a suitable corridor. So, and Sally it's a continuous street on the east side of the road. There are some alleys that could also function as a bike lane, but the paving in those is substandard. What the traffic engineers looked at was 3 preliminary concepts for adding bicycle lanes. The first is what would be called a buffered bicycle lane, and that's where there would be a hatch on the road, and the bicycle lane would be placed next to the parked cars. The second option would be a protected class bike lane, and with this one, there would be, the bicycle lane would be next to the curb, and then there would be a buffer, and then the parking, and then the travel lanes. The travel lanes would be, in all situations, would be reduced to 11 feet, which would help crowd the street and make it less comfortable for people to speed. These also would provide greater protection for bicyclists. And the third option is what they call a 2-way cycle track. This option would create a 2-way bicycle lane on one side of the street, and there would be a buffer and then parking, and then the 2 travel lanes for the cars, and then a lane for parking. Staff attended, and this is just showing the same option for the 50-foot width, but I think one of the things to drive home tonight is that this is not part of a capital improvements program today for the city. This did come from the concern about speeding and safety. One of the things that staff learned when we attended a bicycle transportation planning and design class this spring provided by Caltrans is that if bicycling is supposed to be used for a mode of transportation, it has to be the facilities have to be comfortable for the average person, not for somebody who likes to bicycle for exercise. It has to be protected, and they use a measure of what they call the level of stress. So the cycle track would be provide the least level of stress and the most protection for a bicycle rider. Kimley Horn has said they could prepare a more detailed design for bicycle lanes if it's the pleasure of the City Council for $15,154. This would include, of course, community meetings. Again, this isn't in the budget. They mentioned that in the city of San Jose, they're doing some pilot projects where they put in a preliminary design and then they follow up with more permanent paving. They said one option might be to pursue a Cal Recycle rubberized grant program that could help with that overlay. So at this point, staff is recommending that the City Council direct staff to return with a resolution approving the design and construction of the Sally Street bicycle lane as part of the CIP 2019-20 and a supplemental appropriation of $15,154. Through this process, there would be more refined indication of the actual construction budget costs, which would be presented to the City Council. So we're seeking direction.
Okay. Any questions or comments from council?
One question.
You do have a question?
Yeah.
Vice Mayor Richmond?
One question. Would any of these take away any parking spaces? You knew that question was coming, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
they said they would, it most likely would take away some parking spaces. So that would be, I think what's different here is this is one of the wider streets in our downtown core, so there is room to accommodate the parking and the bikes, but there would be some loss of parking spaces. And so that more detailed evaluation would flesh that information out, and then, of course, we would need the community engagement.
Thank you.
And we did impress that it would need to be bilingual.
Okay. Councilmember Resendez?
Yeah, just real briefly, there's a major difference between this one and the one that we're referring to, or Mr. Vice Mayor is referring to. I've been down the street plenty of times, so there's plenty of parking, but I do agree with getting an evaluation done to get a more thorough report. Thank you.
I'm curious on the different models, and it is a very wide street, and every time I do cross that intersection, I'm very careful because people do speed. The option, as far as the car being parked, the bicycle lane, and then the buffer, seems to me the one that really people are more familiar with. Mm-hmm. The other ones, although they could be a great thing, it's just hard for people to get familiar with it, especially those where the car has to park further from the curb. Mm-hmm. That's just it's not going to fly. So I'm wondering why there would be a loss of parking on if you're creating a bike lane.
I'm not sure. I'm not a traffic engineer. It could be near the approaches to the intersections because sometimes there's that box. I think I'm not sure. What?
Maybe signage.
I think
one of the ideas I was going to say, it's great we're going to be doing the bike lane and make some more use of the road. But the problem of speeding is not going to go away unless we try to implement some different strategies like the bulb outs or something to maybe slow it down at those intersections. Is that a possibility? And that whole road needs to be resurfaced. I think it's just pothole city every time it rains.
The staff report does mention that as far as pavement index, that report is outdated, but I think it's not as bad as...
It was in the 30s, I believe.
Yeah.
Which is pretty bad. Is the conversation about speed humps, is that a conversation being had? Because I think it's something we're going to need to start to look at because there are areas that we just can't get people to slow down. It's just one of those things that we have to
I think
reevaluate.
Narrowing the travel lane is recognized as a strategy. There could be, I think there's different philosophies about the speed humps. At this class, one of the things they talked about is when there's a person in an ambulance and they have an injury where they're very sensitive to movement, that bump can be an issue or a hump. And so I think there's sometimes they have what they call traffic circles, and maybe that's something, another approach. So
at this point, you're going to bring back more information?
Would you like information also about other strategies?
Absolutely.
So that would probably cost more money, but we'll return with that resolution, and if is that acceptable?
If that's all right with the council, I think.
Because we could then use that in other neighborhoods, right?
I think it may be a way to show an example of what can be done. Yeah. I think you have to customize. It's hard to, I think, just cookie cutter something
But
on
at
a
some
road.
point, we need to address these issues, especially when we're over there. You heard how many times they're talking about speed humps. So if we can get that report done and look at some different ways of establishing that would be good. Like you said, it's not going to be cookie cutter, but we really need to start talking about this issue. And then I think we need to be consistent across the entire city. We can't just have, let's say, roundabouts over here, and then we're going to have speed bumps over here. We need to come up with a better plan and be consistent so that it's throughout the whole city. Just it's more aesthetically pleasing, and for the citizens as well. They know that this is what to expect when they're in Hollister.
And on that note, we will be rolling out this. We're going to be issuing a request for proposal for a complete streets plan for Meridian, Santa Ana, and Buena Vista Road and Memorial in association with the grant that was awarded last February. So that will be happening at least for those corridors.
Councilmember Lenore?
Yes, thank you. Well, it's an interesting topic. North Chapel. Oh, they're speeding. So now we're doing something. Oh, it's too slow. So it's an issue. So I hope people understand that when you do those bulb outs, it's meant to slow you down. You're speeding, and we're going to work on it. And unfortunately, you sped yourself right into a corner. So that's a good. What I'm trying to say is there's a good example of a traffic calming measure, such as this could be a traffic calming measure. But some people like it, and some people don't. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Spencer?
To the speed bumps, speed tables, speed, they don't work. Got them in front of the high school, and I've watched people who enjoy going over them doing about 45, 50 miles an hour because they can just get a little bit of air. So I think we really need to think about that. I mean, if we're going to do them, they're about 4 or 5 feet high. Might work, but I see them and they don't work in front of the high school.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from council? Do we have any speaker cards? Okay, so you have our consensus on.
Right. We'll return with the resolution, but we'll also include the examination of other traffic calming strategies.
I really do enjoy or like the bike lane. I mean, it's great, and love to see that on Monterey Street, by the way. Just saying. Okay. All right, we're going to move to G9.
Oh, no, we're not.
Yo, cannabis again. We are not done. Let's beat this dead horse.
Actually, I have a pretty good inkling that we're going to be talking about cannabis and all the other stuff. So over the next couple of months, so I would ask politely if the council doesn't mind moving on beyond G9, and I will make some sort of presentation, and we'll discuss it at study sessions or whatever other forums that we have in the future related to cannabis.
Okay.
So you withdraw?
I support skipping G9.
There's consensus
to withdraw, correct?
Yeah.
No action.
But if I could have a minute to digress, I was just talking to our city attorney. We have 3 items on January 30th. I just wanted to ask this question as we move forward. We have growth management, traffic around schools, and downtown for the special town hall meeting. You want to start at 7. I'm wondering if it would be okay if you set some sort of time limit if we go from, say, 7 to 10, or each item lasts an hour with councils having 10 minutes or so to comment. I'd like to put some parameters so that when we agendize it, if somebody is interested in traffic around schools, they know when to come, and we don't drag on. I mean, because these 3 items could probably, each one in and of itself could probably take 6 hours, right?
They absolutely could. The problem is, I would agree, 7 to 9, too much. It doesn't work.
Okay.
For the general public.
Did you want to limit the speakers' times to 2 minutes instead of 3 or something? I just like to make sure that we have the parameters going in so that there's no unintended.
Right. We want to hear from the public, but we have to limit time. Otherwise, we won't get through it. And we could always have another town hall meeting if it gets to be that point. And again, the more engagement we get from the public, that means we're being successful with our citizens. So,
sorry.
I do need to know if we're going to limit the time for speakers to 2 minutes, because I'm going to have to make special speaker cards for that. I can do it. I just need to know.
We do need a limit to 2 minutes.
They're going to be mad when you do that.
Well, yeah, I think the idea is that...
We're going to let 20 people speak in an hour, and that just doesn't seem like that's... I mean, if you're inviting the entire town to only let 20... I don't want to be in a situation where we're trying to pick and choose the first 20. No.
There was an idea that was put forward. May we City Attorney, may we discuss this, setting up this meeting at some length without being agendized? Without discussing the issues?
I think it's fine. You're just discussing a couple of details regarding
That's correct.
the next meeting.
Okay, before I go into
public of that.
there was a very, very inventive way of doing that was discussed at the meeting in Sacramento, which was one city or two have a thing where when the speaker's up, if you agree with them, you just raise your hand. So there's no noise. People get to say, basically get to say, I agree with that, without having to go to the podium, just to say, I agree with that. And so I don't know if we could implement that for one meeting, but it is. I think it's a little inventive, and it seemed logical to me, and because I think 2 or 3 good speakers normally cover much of the ground, and therefore other people who don't need to speak could say. So maybe we could implement that. Just an idea.
It's a great idea.
I don't know if there's microphones there, but if there are, I know that at some of our classes, they like put 1 or 2 microphones on a stand, and people line up and just...
Okay. All right, so there was no speakers, and as far as number 9, we're going to speak on that some other time. So item H1, I now will recuse myself, being that I do own the property next door. Vice Mayor Richmond, here you go. I'm gone. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
I'll be in the back room.
So we get a report from the city staff regarding the parking license agreement with Del Crudo Brothers Construction as it relates to the Briggs Building. Parking structure and development of 400 block, and direct staff to return with a resolution incorporating the recommended changes. So you're up.
Okay. This was before the City Council in November. We presented a parking license agreement. And just for purposes of background, this is for the property commonly referred to as the 400 block property. There's an aerial that, oh, I gotta turn it on. Thank you. It's commonly called the grassy lot. That was owned by our former redevelopment agency, and I'll try and be very brief, but state law mandated that we sell the property. We develop a plan to sell it, and it went through that process, and it was approved by the Department of Finance. And so in 2015, we released a request for proposal for the disposition of the property for a mixed-use project. And the genesis for that concept came from a downtown strategy plan. There was a proposal from the Del Cordo Brothers and the Community Foundation for San Benito County that was approved for a mixed-use development on the property with a philanthropic center, and then a mixed-use building with retail on the ground floor and condominiums on the upper floors. A disposition and development agreement was approved on June 5th, 2017, and in that agreement, it said that the city would reserve 24 parking spaces in the Briggs Building parking structure for the Del Curto Brothers and 20 spaces for the Philanthropic Center. The Planning Commission approved the site and architectural review for the construction of both buildings last September. We brought before the City Council in November proposed license agreements for both parties, and they did not approve the resolution. They wanted more information. One of the things they wanted to know is what would be the fair share costs for the condominiums for security, because the parking garage is closed at night. Some of the issues that they properly pointed out is that the entry on the ground floor here would need to be modified to be ADA accessible. You can see that there's a a panel there, but that's to allow you entrance into the Gavilan, and not into the to the elevator. They also wanted to make sure they would be paying their fair share for the security costs, and there was concern that the agreement didn't have a sunset, so there was a desire to have a sunset clause in the agreement, and that they thought the fee of $15 per space per month was too low, and so after the meeting, staff reviewed security requirements. We went with the building official, and we talked to the company that installed the main door for vehicles to enter and exit the garage, and we obtained information about what it would cost to upgrade the door or to install equipment for a keyless pad entry or a radio receiver entry. We also got information on what type of improvements would be needed for a pedestrian door. That would, near the elevator, would need to be ADA accessible. It would also need to have the automatic open thing that you see there, and all the other entries would also require that improvement. When we met with the community foundation, they said that they really don't need to be there after hours, so that they don't really need all that security. And so they are a nonprofit, so they questioned whether or not it would be appropriate for them to pay a fee at all to have reserved spaces. So we're asking for the foundation, we're asking the city council if they would support their request to pay no fee to have the reserved spaces, but have this reviewed every 5 years. And in the future, if there was fees charged at the facility for the public, then they would pay whatever the public pays. They would pay no less. Regarding the Del Curto brothers, through the course of the conversations, there was a lot of back and forth talking to a lot of the fire department, police department, building official, trying to pin down what exactly were the optimal security requirements, and the staff is of the mind that it probably better just to leave the facility open, because then there's not so much of a nuisance of dealing with the door, with people getting locked in or out, and it would just be simpler. There would be more people using the facility. There would be, one of the terms I went to training about crime prevention through environmental design. It talks about putting eyes on the street. If people are in that facility more because they're living there and they're using it, then that helps with some of those attractive nuisance issues that maybe compel it to be closed today. So we're recommending, as far as the Del Curto brothers for the condominiums, that there be two options in the agreement depending on whether or not the facility is open 24 hours or if it's closed. If it's open to the public, then they would pay a pro rata share for the general maintenance cost and upkeep of the parking garage. But the maintenance of the first floor lease areas, say, that Gavilan uses, would not be part of that. That would be excluded. If there's a secured entry, then the developer, the residents, would be responsible for installing all equipment to make those entries secure. That means the improvements to the man doors at all the entrances, and also to pay for the whether or not they use a radio receiver or a remote control or a keyless pad. That would be their responsibility to pay for that. And again, they would be required to pay for the pro rata share for the operation and maintenance of the elevators and the garage door if it was going to be. And the conditions of approval for their site and architectural require that they annex to community facility districts 4 and 5, and it's recommended that the cost for the pro rata cost be derived through that process, whether the garage is open 24 hours or whether it's closed, and that the Del Curtos would be responsible for funding that, establishing that baseline cost. The city has also discussed from time to time through this process with negotiating for the project whether or not it would be prudent to put solar panels on the upper deck of the Briggs building to help offset the cost for power for the building. If that's the case, then the Del Curtos would have the option to relocate their reserved parking spaces to that upper deck and install a gate. There's 22 spaces that they could have with a private gated entry on the very upper ramp near, let's see if there's if you look, there's the grassy lot, and there's 4th Street is on the top there. And when I'm talking about that upper ramp, the spaces, the half of that upper deck that is closest to 4th Street, there's 22 spaces there. And so if they put in a gate, that would be their cost, and they would be on the hook to maintain that also. During the course of discussion, one of the things we also noted is that the Briggs building is over 20 years old. I believe it had its final, it was finished in late 1995, and it's part of there's an enterprise fund for it. It's a result of the leasing the ground floor for Gavilan. And I checked with finance today. I think there's $3 million in that enterprise account. And it's some things that were discussed is that it could use
I think it's 300,000.
300,000?
Yes, not 3 million.
Okay, sorry.
I'm
sorry.
like, wow.
Okay,
No.
I thought that was high. Okay, I heard that wrong then, yeah. So one of the things when we walked around with the management services director is he pointed out that if you look on the left, they were doing something with the ladder today. So there's a ladder in the picture. But that door, where it says the Briggs building, the door can come down when it's closed at night for security. And then it looks similar to the door on the left. And another approach would be to modify the appearance here and give it more of the appearance of the entrance when you come into Gavilan and glass it in. It would provide a little dressier approach. There's also been some issues around the farmers market with some of the youth, some of the activities, and it could help deter some of those activities. So we're also recommending that we be directed to return with a CIP to perform some general maintenance on the Briggs building. So we're looking for direction. First, we would like to have a recommendation, if we could start with the foundation. You may want to take comment, but we would, first with the foundation, we're recommending that you direct us to return with a resolution to allow the reservation of the spaces at no cost, and a requirement that the license agreement be reviewed every 5 years, and that if there is a charge for use of the facility, that the cost would be the same as the general public. With the Del Curtos, we're recommending that we return with an agreement with two options. One, with the facility being open 24 hours, then the maintenance costs would be the pro rata share for using the facility. And then if it's a secured entrance, then the developer would be on the hook for paying for those security costs that would be required because the residents would need to get in and out during the day or in the evening when it's locked. One of the issues with having it gated, that people talked about also is if a car comes in at night, then who knows what else is going to come in with it, because there's a lag time between when the door opens and closes. And then also if the door is stuck, then people are stuck inside and they can't get out, and then that's calls for security, and it's more wear and tear on the facility, on the door also. Questions?
We're going to have.
Would the members of the council like to ask Mary some questions before we move on to public speakers or
I'm going to talk with Mr. Byrne if he steps up to the podium.
Don't leave, Mary. Stay right there.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Because it really does feel like good morning. Are you providing breakfast for us this morning?
Gary, I wondered if there's adequate slots, 22 that you're wanting?
20 for the
okay,
philanthropic
20.
center.
So
yes.
here it is. We have a public garage and we have a non-residential use with the philanthropic building. Is it really necessary to have reserved spots? Because for me, it just seems like it's kind of being special for that use when none of the other buildings have dedicated spots. None of the other buildings have a dedicated spot in the garage because it's a public building. How important is it that they have to be reserved for the community foundation?
Great question. No, we do not need dedicated spots at all. But it came to our attention when we were negotiating with the city, we want to be the best neighbors possible. So we thought about the businesses around us. And I need a carrot for the nonprofits who are going to be in the building. So 20 spots, first of all, is not adequate. We're probably going to have maybe 30 people working there, and then you're going to have a conference room that's going to hold 100 people. So it really is symbolic. So the way I will look at it is CASA is in the philanthropic center. They have 3 staff. And I will tell them that we have 20 dedicated spots for the philanthropic center. I want the staff to park there. They can park anywhere there, but there. So I don't want them parking in the street. You know, and the whole idea is we're going to call it Philanthropic Center. Anybody can park there. Nobody's policing it. So if the parking lot is full and there's a big thing going on, so we're not saying that, there's no special place for the Philanthropic Center. We'll have an area. So my thing is it's a carrot for me to say to my staff and the other nonprofits is that we have spots in there for you to park off the street. There's lots of room there. I don't want you clogging up the street, even if you're only coming to work for 30 minutes. I'm going to say that I want you to park in there. The city has given us those. Now, we know, but they say, well, it's full. That's great. Well, there's 200 spots. Park anywhere you want, but we want to fill those up first.
Will they be marked, though? Will
yes.
So that's poses the question is when I see something that says it's reserved for a business, I don't park there. So
you're the exception.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Well, don't forget though. The other thing is that we are asking, and again, we thought about this with the city, where if they were on the ground floor or the first floor, that's the easy one. We want it up high. My thought is that get people used to using the parking lot up higher. It's still covered and what have you, but just get them into the frame of mind from the moment the philanthropic center is open. So when we have events. When we have a conference there and we tell people, please park in the parking structure, that there's loads of space there. Do not park on the street because if you have an event, it's going to be 2 or 3 hours. One, we don't want them getting tickets, but I don't want to tick off all the neighborhood.
No, I want the garage used.
Yeah.
You're right.
So that was our only purpose of asking for the dedicated was that we would encourage people. We have spots, use them.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you.
Sure.
That was my only question for him.
I'm good.
I wondered if you could return to the podium for me, but
I knew I stayed for a reason.
I forgot I'm running the meeting. You first, Roland.
Question for the city attorney. As Mary pointed out, this item came before the city council in November, and it was voted 2-2. What is the timeline that is required before it can come back for consideration after being failed to pass?
Okay, first off, that may be the case. I don't have any actual knowledge of that, or I don't recall it. Typically, if a motion is not adopted, is not passed, then it should be a 1-year period of time before it comes back, unless there's some substantial change or something else. That's the general rule that's followed.
So at this time, I would ask that we follow that general rule and wait the time period.
You would make that motion?
I don't remember that.
I don't remember, because I know Jim Gillio didn't, Jim Gillio wouldn't vote for it, Carson Clower did, and Jim Gillio wanted more time, Carson wanted more security.
I do not have a record of the vote. We're not going to do it from memory. Okay? I appreciate your help, but we're not going to do it from memory.
Well,
do you
I
have a
need
record of that vote?
clarification. I need clarification.
I'll give you a chance in a minute. Just let's get a fact down. What? Excuse me?
November 7th. November 9th.
I remember what Marty said at that meeting, but I don't remember the others.
The second issue came from the mouth of the city attorney, which is unless there was substantial change, it appears to me that the proposal now is to leave the parking garage open 24 hours a day, and that is a substantial change, because the previous issue was how do we operate it when the parking garage closes every night?
Right.
In my opinion, and I can only give my personal opinion, we haven't voted or anything, that and many other items that are going to be discussed before this one item comes up. We have the Del Curto brothers is under the same item, if I'm not mistaken. Right? This is the same item number. You're not the only one here. They're basically how to operate their part of the operation is essentially the same one, and therefore, in my opinion, I can only give you my opinion. That is a very substantial change. So I'll entertain your motion if you wish to put it forward. I think you have a right to make the motion.
Christine is actually looking right now to see what the minutes were of the meeting. So if you want to just take like a few minutes to hang on and see if she can find them.
Well, why don't we continue? Would it be okay? I know she's out. Can we take testimony while the clerk is out, or we have to wait till she comes back?
It can move forward.
Okay, let's move forward. It's very late at night, and I'm not trying to hustle anybody. I just think we ought to make use of the time because we sent her out.
Sure.
So then,
so what you're saying now is that essentially you want to use the public space and pay what the public currently. Oh, I'm sorry.
If I can, I've got a few more minutes.
It is
Thank you.
It is.
I've got some more questions. Thank you so much. My question is for Mary. Do these commercial buildings pay impact fees at all?
The commercial buildings will not, because the disposition and development agreement gives credit for the buildings that were there. So it's up to the square footage of the amount of buildings that were there, and it will be, I think, a little bit less, which was, if you look through time, that was the intent ever since those buildings were eliminated.
So they're allowed to have their impact fees waived because the other buildings paid impact fees. So did the other buildings pay impact fees?
Their replacement. And so that's the same thing that they did with the Dick Brune building, the Farm Bureau building, the Leonard Paletti building, all those buildings that were lost after the Loma Prieta earthquake. And I think typically also if somebody demolishes a house and rebuilds, they don't pay impact fees.
So then my question would be, did the original buildings pay impact fees?
They did not, because they were from really old.
So they didn't pay impact fees, and we've got new developments going up that are not going to pay impact fees that are going to impact our community.
Well, there was already commerce there. There was already, the uses were there. And so that's the basis for not requiring the impact fee because they're replacement of commercial space. It's not new. If they, let's say though that instead of having a mix, they will pay the impact fees for the condominiums, and let's pretend that the impact, that there was a 4-story commercial building, and I can't remember off the top of my head the square footage. I could show it to you if you want to see it.
All right.
Let's pretend it was 2,000 square feet and the development was adding 4,000 square feet of commercial, then they would be paying that net difference of the additional 2,000 square feet.
Okay.
Oh,
it was 2-2.
okay.
So at this time, I'd like to make a motion for us to allow the time allotted that we've been told by our legal counsel that it should be not brought up for another year unless
A substantial change.
there's substantial change.
Well, I think he's made a motion, basically not to move forward with this item, so I think that motion would take precedence, in my opinion. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
If it's seconded.
Thank you.
But we could still let.
Well, let's see where the motion goes. Is there a second for the motion not to entertain this because it is a year old and the maker of the motion says there was not a substantial change? He has to say that because that would be the exception. Is there a second? I hear none. Motion dies for lack of second.
Okay. I just want to point out, what's the difference? A substantial change, what's the difference? Number one, the Community Foundation, last time they were here in November, they said they were going to pay, I think it was, $15 per space a month.
Per month, yes.
So the major difference that we're saying they're doing now is, in fact, they're saying they're not going to pay anything to pay there, and they want us to still reserve for them to have their parking. The other difference is that the condominiums are asking for 24 parking spaces. I think last time we were here, and it was at the City Council, we asked if they can pay their fair share. Now they're saying they'll just leave the garage open so that they don't have to pay that fee as well. I want to talk about impacts because I was downtown, this weekend I was getting my hair cut, and my hairdresser is right there on 5th Street, and she says that during the week there's absolutely nowhere for them to park in front of her building on 5th Street. So Mr. Burns just said that we're going to have 30 employees working there, up to 100 people at a conference. The condominiums are saying they're going to have 24 parking spaces for 22 condos. If we have one person ideally living in there that has one car, then that might make sense. But we're going to have at least 2 people, possibly 3. This day and age, living in a commuter town, we're going to need double or triple that number of parking spaces. I don't agree with this project. I never have. I think the public's getting a raw deal. And if we're going to have a new development go up, they should pay their fair share. They should, number one, bring their own parking garage in, just like they did in Gilroy, and have an underground parking garage, because I feel like all of these impacts and all of these people that are proposing to park in there, that's just a really low number, and it's really going to impact our community, our downtown area, in way more ways than what they're proposing here. That is all. Thank you.
Just a point of clarification, all the units are one-bedroom units in the...
That's not to say that there's not going to be a couple living in there and they each drive a vehicle. That'll make it double. And we have to keep in mind that there's a total of how many parking spaces in that parking garage?
143, I think it is.
So about 140. So
And I have been parking there. It's pretty easy. And I've never, and I have monitored it to exactly for this reason, to look. And I don't think, maybe once I've seen a car on the very upper deck, and it's very rare to see cars on the third deck. it's underutilized.
But they're asking to not be parked on the upper deck unless we provide coverage for them. And let's take into note, I know that there's a possibility that the college might move, but I don't want to make a decision saying that this may happen. We've got students using that building right now. Those are probably the people that use it the most. I'm not willing to take away their parking as well as all of the other businesses that are using the parking. It's just something that I just can't do, and I really, truly feel that if this issue were to go to the public for a vote, they would vote it down in an instant. Thank you.
Well, as a matter of record, the development and disposition, there was prior development and disposition agreements, and they all contemplated that the 400 block property would be using the parking garage for parking. So it's
okay, I'm going to have some questions concerning this arrangement. Just for the record, so that people know, because I did. Before we go, Gordon's going to be sitting there, other people for public comment. We're going to take public comment. But we're going to do some discussion first. I'm so sorry to keep you so late. But just for the record, I did personal monitoring. I didn't know you were doing personal monitoring. I drove through there. Well, one time there was a police car in there. It was the only car in there. It was 1:35 in the afternoon. I went out on one of the biggest shopping days pre-Christmas, and there was 4 cars in there, in the whole garage. I went in during weekdays, and there was no cars in there, and the only car on the top was the person who checks the whether you park overtime, the parking enforcement lady, who took her break there because she can park underneath the thing that, shields you from the sun there. There's a parking spot. The people in Hollister hate that garage. Now, I'm not saying that students won't go there to drive right up to the entrance of their college, but they hate that garage. They don't use that garage because they hate it. And there are reasons that it's not such a good garage, but that's it's an old, so those don't matter. So I don't think all of a sudden we're going to have an overflow problem at the garage unless something enormous happens. Second thing is, I will disagree with the previous speaker that Gaviland, we don't know if Gaviland's going to build anything. Well, they got our $61 million. I hope they will do something with it. And if they don't build anything, I hope they'll give it to us for parking spots. I mean that sincerely, because you know how I fought against that $61 million. They're going to build something, because if they don't, there's going to be a march on Gaviland, and people are going to just take that building apart stone by stone. So I do think my concern of this when it originally came by was I couldn't understand the concept of operation. What's the concept of operation? How does the door work? The simplest solution is to leave it open. It's a public parking garage, okay, after all. And we have been letting people park there and charging them nothing, okay? In fact, we beg them to park there, and they don't even go, and charging them nothing. So, the only difference would be we put a name on a parking stall and say Community Foundation or something. We may even use the word reserved. I have a question for you, sir. Since you don't plan on working at night, could we put a time on there and say, 7 a.m. to, whatever?
Absolutely.
Because we're going to keep it open 24 hours a day. Somebody comes in at 1 o'clock in the morning, wants a party, they could use it.
I couldn't agree more.
Oh.
First of all, we've talked about this with the other nonprofits.
Right.
And I think Carol, your question about naming, I don't like it. I've never liked it in other places either. If this is an issue, we do not want this to be an issue between the Philanthropic Centre and the council at all. I'm willing to totally drop it. One of the reasons that we brought it up really was the carrot, and I couldn't agree more with Roland regarding your concern with the businesses. We need to be good neighbours. If the Vault is having a big party, and they're not parking in the parking lot, in the structure, they're going to be on the street. We don't want, when we do have events, and we will have events, there's going to be a courtyard there. There's going to be, the arts community might say they have a party there. I mean, we hope that there's going to be a restaurant there, right there. So there are going to be people. Absolutely, there's going to be an impact. I couldn't agree more, but we see this as an economic vitality impact. We're going to bring people downtown. The Community Foundation in Santa Cruz is a philanthropic center, okay? They had over 7,000 visitors last year come to their place, okay? That had an impact. Those people shopped, they ate in the area, and they visited in the area. Of course it's going to have an impact. It's going to have a big impact, So that's the whole idea of bringing the philanthropic center downtown, is that we wanted to stay downtown to be a focus and a hub. It's not just offices for the Community Foundation. Our hope is that we're going to have 10, 12, 13 nonprofits there, and we will have a conference room, conference center that anybody can use. These are going to be facilities for the whole community to use. We never have a place big enough for people to come and say, hey, we often have to use these chambers, or we use the Board of Supervisors chambers. There's very few places. The Vets Hall is very expensive, not great acoustics. So our whole purpose is that it's going to be a gathering place for the community. We're going to have 2 or 3 small conference rooms for nonprofits to have boardroom meetings, which is badly needed in the community. Some classroom space. So that was the whole idea of us saying, if I really was realistic, I would probably say to the city, you know what, I would rather reserve 40 spots because I'll use them. But our thing was just a token for me when a new nonprofit comes to me, like the Red Cross have come and said, Gary, we would love to have some space. They will be using nighttime classes. So, Marty, you say about nighttime. There will be some. I couldn't say guarantee, but I agree with you. I could say you could say 8 to 5. Whenever the Philanthropic Center is officially open, and at nighttime. Now, when we started doing this, that was the one thing that I did. I walked down there many, many days in a row. When Gavilan is in and the classes are in, there are 20, maybe 30 cars on the first level. After that, absolutely nothing. And other times we've gone over there, absolutely. It is underused building whatsoever. It will now be used. You will have people use it. It was built particularly and only for the 400 block. That was why. $5 million. The City Council of Hollister put in 20%, over $1 million. And for 20-something years, it has not been used. That whole area has not been used. So that's our hope. So is there any other questions? Does that answer your question?
On your portion, I have several questions on the other portion. Maybe we ought to give the public a chance to speak finally, and then we'll ask questions on the Del Crudo portion. I do have questions on operational. Does anybody else have a question on this portion, on the philanthropic portion? No? Okay.
Gordon Machado.
Could you call the public? Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm not very good at this. I'm practicing.
I can comment one more time when the public hearing's done, correct?
We're going to talk more.
Thank you.
Good evening. A little living history. In 1997, I don't think people realize that the city of Hollister had no parking lots whatsoever in 1997. And the city council, which I was involved in at the time, we established a parking assessment district from 3rd Street to 7th Street and from East Street to West Street, or Monterey Street. Every piece of property in that assessment district, with the vote of the property owners, you had to get your 50% plus one to get the property owners to assess themselves. And that took a couple of years of hard-nosed negotiations. Anyway, 1997 is when it was formulated, and the city purchased some properties, purchased some buildings, not that much demolishing buildings, but ended up paving the 9 parking lots you have in town today.
Then came 1989, where you had the Loma Prieta, the earthquake. The building across the street, the Oddfellows, went down. The whole 400 block went down. You had some parts of Dick Bruins went down. You had the State Theater structure that went. You had 4 or 5 other buildings that were damaged. When the federal government came in, the Department of Economic Development came in and negotiated with the city and said that they wanted to help out. And that's when they were negotiating even the sale of the 400, the grass area, I should say. That failed for 3 or 4 years. And the federal government says, we got to get out of here. We're going to try to help you out after the earthquake and recover, but we have to move. So the redevelopment agency, which is already formulated, they, in partnership with economic development, looked for a location for something to benefit the community. And they put in the parking garage. The parking garage is not really tied to the grass area. It's simultaneous or side by side with the grass area. That was a couple of buildings were in there. That's one of the parking lots. The garage is actually parked on or built on parking lot number 2. Next to that was a car wash. So when they decided where to build this parking lot to help out the downtown, it was a logical place to put it next to the 400 block on vacant land, the number 2 parking lot, and the car wash. And that's why it's located there. Yes, it is. Keep on going.
Why don't you finish your thought?
Yeah. So anyway, after that, you still had in the assessment district, I like to stress too, when those people were assessed dollars, they had a 30-year contract. The grass area buildings went down, paid their fair share of the assessment district till the redevelopment agency bought them out. All the other properties under the assessment district, you can build more additional to your building. You can find a vacancy and you can build a building there with no requirement for parking because you're in a parking assessment district. Wind Insurance was a single-story building. Within 2 or 3 months, or 2 or 3 years, they were smart. They were single-story. They went up 3 stories, ate up their parking lot in the back because they didn't have to provide additional parking because they're in a parking assessment district. You also had 2 different fires downtown. You had the 600.
Wrap it up, please.
Okay, if you don't want to hear it.
No, well, I just ask you to finish your thought pattern because.
Well, I spent 4 hours waiting, okay. And I spent my life involved in this, and you want to give me 3 minutes. Anyway, you also have the Pendergrass Hotel, which is part of the assessment district, and they pay good money because they have a large piece of property. They also have access to that property. The garage went in sitting with them, the federal government was adamant that the bottom floor of this building has to be commercial. And the reason for that was to derive income for the maintenance of that building, which Gavilan has provided over the years. But I guess what I'm saying is that in the assessment district, anybody can move anything because there's adequate parking being provided by the assessment district, which includes the garage itself. So also in November of 2008, the general public, the city of Hollister, all the voters voted in Measure Y, given the downtown the opportunity to use mixed use, not just commercial, mixed use. So the upstairs of the buildings can be converted into apartments, units, and that. Some have been in the past, and some are being renovated right now. But it gives them the same opportunity under the assessment district. So it's a little different picture than I think it was being presented, and the history of why it's there, and the parking garage is in reality part of the assessment district. It was given to the city of Hollister. Well, in partnership with the RDA, it was developed for the parking of downtown, which is part of the assessment district.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we ought to move on and talk about the other portion of it was the Del Crudo proposal. Would you like, do you want to make a comment?
I
on
want to
the
make
Del
a comment. I do, because I want to clarify
on the
something.
Del Crudo?
On the philanthropic building. You know, folks, this structure's in the parking assessment district. Nothing prevents the community foundation from putting their building there and using that public parking garage just like every other business downtown. What's being confused is the residential component of the Del Curdo. That's a little different situation, but you tell me what's different about this new building that's going downtown that is going to use a public parking structure. That's why maybe don't label your lots, because it seems to be an issue. I wouldn't do it. I appreciate the fact that you're sensitive, that you don't want to have your clients and your meetings take up city parking, but if it's not going to be appreciated, then use that public parking structure to park the people in your building, just like everybody else downtown. Thank you.
You're welcome. Honor, you have a comment? Roland, do you have a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Machado, for your comments. If I'm not mistaken, Mr. Machado pointed out that every new business paid for their own parking, or they paved the parking down there at one time?
No, in the assessment district, the properties in the assessment district. So all the properties on the 400 block were part of the assessment district.
Okay, and
So
then that was, they paved the parking. What did that have to do with?
They paid into an assessment district, which then in turn acquired the land that was used, and then it paid also to construct the parking lots. And so there's a parking lot, all the public parking lots that are downtown, those were funded by the assessment district.
Okay, and then
There's one exception, and that's one on the east side of 3rd Street near Hollister Super or Baylor Market.
Yes.
That came later.
Okay, and then there's the issue of the in lieu parking. So the in lieu parking does not apply to this building? That's
correct. Right. Because they're part of the downtown assessment district. The in lieu parking would apply to are you familiar with the State Theater property? It's a vacant lot across from the Vets building.
Mm-hmm.
That property owner elected not to participate in the assessment district.
Mm-hmm.
So they would not have the same benefit of other properties that paid in to construct the parking downtown.
Okay. And then another issue I wanted to bring up. We did start the parking ad hoc committee. I know that not everybody here is going to agree with me, but I'm trying to find some middle ground, and I would like for us to at least consider this parking contract in that parking ad hoc committee. This is an issue that I'm very compassionate and attached to, and I would ask for you guys to at least entertain a motion for us to have this parking agreement stream through the ad hoc committee for parking.
I think you're talking about two different tools, though. The in lieu fee is a tool that is used it's my understanding the ad hoc committee is examining the in lieu fee program. And that's a program for a property like I just spoke to, that's at the corner of San Benito and 7th. It's vacant, and if they wanted to develop, it's about a 6,000 square foot lot. And also there's another building on that same block where if they wanted to rehabilitate the upper floors, they're not in that district. So if they were able to pay an in lieu fee to help provide off-street parking, then they could develop their properties. That doesn't apply to these properties because they're in the assessment district. So that tool doesn't apply to them. They don't need it.
Right.
All right.
So the ad hoc committee wouldn't be relevant to this situation.
And neither does impact fees.
Correct. Because, well, it does, there will be impact fees assessed for the condos because that will be a new use.
CFDs for landscape and lighting.
No, and they'll pay impact fees for
And
traffic,
impact fees.
sewer, water, all the impact fees.
Okay, so the impact fees don't they don't go for the philanthropic center.
Correct, because that's a commercial use. So that's a replacement of a commercial use.
Rather than the mixed use.
Correct.
For the other building.
And for the commercial, the ground floor of the mixed-use building will not pay impact fees because that's a commercial use.
Got
And
it.
it's a replacement.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. No, that's fine. That's fine. I keep apologizing for the time of night, but it's important. It's important to a lot of people, and they need to know the information. And so these exchanges are important because they do educate the public on what's going on. So Hollister House, for instance, wants to do the apartments upstairs. He doesn't get an in lieu parking fee.
Correct.
Right?
They're in the assessment district.
He's a commercial operation. He's going to do the apartments upstairs. He's not going to pay an in lieu parking fee, and he has nothing to do with the 400 block. He's the next block over. Okay, he doesn't have to pay it. I did some research on my own, and I did not do it with prejudice. I did it non-prejudicial. I talked to. I looked up Morgan Hill because comments were made. Oh, Morgan Hill charges a fortune for, if you want to do mixed use for parking. Well, I went back 4 years on Morgan Hill when they needed people to come in for mixed use. They gave it away for free. Do they charge now because there's 10 million people lined up who want it? Yes, they do. But when they were developing it, they charged nothing. They gave it away for free. I want to get a clarification of Del Crudo because I am confused. I have to tell you. The discussion about the solar. I didn't understand what was going on until what they're saying now is if there are solar panels put on the roof and those panels are elevated, is that what it is? And you park underneath the panels.
Correct.
Oh, I couldn't figure out how we had solar panels in cars at
Like
the same thing. Okay, then they would be willing to put a gate up there. Now, are we obligated to let them put a gate up there, or they just be willing to do it if we negotiate with them?
What we're recommending, if they wanted to put it, we're not obligated. They would be on the hook to pay for it and get
No, not the
permits.
gate. I'm talking about who would put up the solar panels? The Croto brothers?
Oh, that would be if the city elected to do that.
Okay, so if the city elected to put up the solar panels, are we then obligated to let them park underneath them?
Based on the recommendations, that would be an option.
Oh, it'd be an option, but
Yeah.
we're not obligated. They can't come in and say, well, you put up your solar panels, I get to park underneath them.
The way this is written, they would have the option. They would be able to.
That would be
we
their
would be
option.
obligated.
That
then,
would be our option.
if they wanted to.
I can only give you my personal view. I'm not happy with that. I think it should be our option. Because by that day, a parking spot under a solar panel may be worth $1 million. I have no idea. Right now, we know we let people park for free. So now what floor do they want to park on since there is no solar panels?
I believe it was the third floor.
Okay.
The second and the third, they're ramped.
Okay. And how would we calculate, one more time, their fair share? We would take out the Gavilan spaces?
We would use our bills.
Yes.
Look at our costs for maintaining the elevator, our costs for maintaining the door, our costs for janitorial, for sweeping the.
And so the $180, that replaces the $180 a year per space, or is that in addition to the $180 a year per space? The famous $15 a month.
It would be more than the $15.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that is in addition to the $15 a month charge.
It wouldn't be 15. It would be a higher per space per month.
Yeah, and that higher per space would be based on the total cost, and they would take a fair share of the total cost.
Of maintaining the parking section of the facility.
That's right, of taking the parking section of the facility. Do we have an estimate of what that is? I'm sorry.
It might be closer to 30.
Close to 30, okay.
Based on preliminary
Okay.
costs I have.
And the amount we get currently from a car that parks in there? Nothing. Would that be zero?
Correct.
Okay, so the elevators go to hell, and the people park there right now, they don't contribute anything to fix it, right?
The lease helps
Okay.
pay for that.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any other public comment? I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. I think that ends the comment, and I think it goes back to the city council, and I'm prepared to listen to anybody who wants to make a motion.
I think we're
not
seeking
motion.
direction.
Oh,
Yes,
you want direction?
Yes.
Oh, I did all that, and all you want is direction. Okay. Yeah, sure, of course. There's always one last comment allowed. Please do.
One last comment.
Get the last hit in there.
Again, this is the point where the agreement comes back to the city council, and we have the authority to negotiate whatever we want for them or for us to see on their part. I feel like this is a reoccurring problem that we've had with developments, and that's the problem why we are where we are today. So that's why I'm here to speak my mind. I would love for us to negotiate just a little bit more for the public's sake, to help save them some money, to help save them from impacts. And that's why I'm speaking out against this today, is because this is the time where the ball's back in our court and we get to negotiate on the behalf of the city and our constituents. I feel like by approving this, we're making a huge mistake, and by continuing to give away developers, whether it's philanthropic centers or condominiums, we're making a huge mistake, and I do not want to continue down that path. I just want to put that out there before we vote, or before we give direction. Thank you.
I'll take the privilege then, since I have the chair of the last development. My process has always been to treat people fairly, not to ask any more from anyone than we ask from anyone else, and not to give it more to anyone than we give to anyone else. We have a general plan. That general plan says one of the most important things we need to do is put mixed use downtown. We just got through telling a person who came in here and said, I have some open space. I want to put houses on it. We went, well, that's not in accordance with the general plan. I'm sorry, that's not a good idea, because we don't want to violate our general plan. We adopted, this council, not the people who sit here, this council in their wisdom adopted that general plan, and that general plan forms the plan for how we go ahead. And until it's changed, that's our plan. And we can't go around saying we like this in the general plan, so we do it. We don't like that, so we're not going to do that. This is the general plan is the reason it goes for years and years is so that people will not do that. So there's some cohesiveness. And our general plan says we need mixed use downtown, and we need those people. We hope the cars come, because we want those people there to use our facility, spend the money, get the taxes. That's what it's there for. Now, it may turn out to be a total flop. I can't predict the future more than anybody else. However, that has been our policy. If you look in our general plan, you'll find that's one of the main policies is to put in mixed use. So we can't go, I'm sorry, we want mixed use, except not you, because that's not fair. And we can't pick and choose what we do out of the general plan, because it's not fair to anybody, and no matter how hard we negotiate. So I personally think the direction should be, and I'll look for consensus from the city council to draw up an agreement reflecting the consensus that the philanthropic center would get no reserved parking spots. I believe they can deal with that, and the happiest thing that could happen to me is you go in there one day and it's full and you can't get in there. And the Del Crudo brothers will pay their fair share of the pro rata of the maintenance of the building. And the option about whether we give them the top floor belongs to us, not to them. Okay, they can put in the gate. If we say you can have it, they can put in the gate at their own cost. But
well, do you recommend we just strike it then? We could.
No, I think the option to negotiate with them about getting that space should be available. There's no reason to strike it. I just think it should be our option, not their option. Okay, they can't decide whether they want that royal space on the top or not. That's ours. Okay, and can I get a consensus?
I concur with Vice Mayor Richmond.
Consensus?
I concur.
And no. Okay. That's 3-1 consensus.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. You want to take a 5-minute break before we slug the last one?
Are we done?
No, we got another one. It's 400 block. I hate to tell you that.
Yeah. My arm says it wants to go home.
Okay, let's go. Okay.
Yeah.
This is,
Been there. I've been here to 1 o'clock in the morning when I was on that side of the thing. I'll stick it out and finish it up. 665 pages this thing was.
We have reports for your next meeting due on Thursday. So.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is,
Can we receive a report then on
Yeah.
recommended minor amendments to the disposition development of the DDA for the sale of the 400 block?
right.
Thank you.
One of them is regarding the agreement is to have a loading zones in front of each building. This amendment would just change the limits for the loading zone from 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. so that when, say, the restaurant's open, that could be used for parking, and it would be available for that type of use when it's less likely to be used for loading. The second amendment is regarding the trash enclosure. The agreement says it needs to be placed on the west side of the access road. We thought that was a typo, but it turns out it's probably better that it is on the west side, but we're recommending that there be ability for it to be placed in 1 or 2 of the parking spaces, and those were developed. That parking lot was developed not part of the assessment district. It was developed in association with providing a driveway to the Briggs building, and the project engineer thinks that they could probably then replace those 2 spaces by adding 2 spaces directly behind the vault, which is city property.
So the net
could you
number of
put up
spaces would stay the same, just to clarify?
Yeah, if
Okay.
it's, I think at least 1. I can't promise 2.
All right.
The third recommended change is regarding the agreement says that there would be a lot line adjustment and this is, I guess, this is to help clean up title, which is something I thought that we had done when we got approval for the long-range property management plan. We did a series of lot line adjustments. You could see in the highlighted yellow there's the Phase 2 site, there's parcels and then there's the dotted black lines. There's underlying lots that were not dissolved when we did the lot line adjustments. You can see the lines in them on the left side where it says parcel 2 and parcel 1, and then again where there was quite a few buildings on the 400 block. What we're proposing to do, and the agreement requires a lot line adjustment at the center line of Briggs Alley, the vacation of Briggs Alley, and this can be accomplished with a tentative parcel merger that would eliminate all those underlying lots and would clean up title. It would accomplish the same thing as a lot line adjustment by moving the property line for what's parcel 1, what would be Phase 1 site and Phase 2 site to the center line of what is Briggs Alley, and it would abandon Briggs Alley. So we're proposing to replace the lot line adjustment and road vacation with the parcel merger. It's a different way of tying your shoes, essentially. And then regarding the schedule of performance, we're proposing to extend 60 days from today for those things that haven't occurred yet because there's been delays related to the issues with the underlying parcels on the property and the trash enclosure and the proposal for the amendment.
Comments?
So we're seeking direction
sorry.
to return with a resolution and preparing an amendment.
Pardon me, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Okay.
you. Is there a speaker card on this particular item? Comments, Councilmember Lenore, Councilmember Spencer, Councilmember Resendez?
I went to Gavilan College and I attended classes there at the Briggs Building, and I would drive in there, and if you were lucky, you would get one of those parking spaces right over to the left because it was just way more convenient. You don't have to go up the garage and everything. So I just want to point out, for transparency and the public's sake, that we are looking at eliminating how many of those parking spaces now?
We're proposing to eliminate 1 or 2 and then replace them. Here's a picture. So right here is where we initially thought the trash enclosure would go. So we could replace, let's see. There's the white van and the black car. It may be possible they would have to eliminate those 2 parking spaces, but they could replace at least one of them where you see the black grease can, or on the other side of the cage.
All right, I just wanted to be clear about that. And then, again...
So there would most likely be 1, a maximum, or none.
And I would imagine, just assuming that the employees are going to be parking in those spaces as well, even if they've got quote-unquote reserved spaces, I feel like we're taking away more parking from the kids. We're going to eliminate some parking spaces so that they can put their garbage cans there. We're not in the business of making them profit. I think that if they want to put garbage cans, then they can put it in their building, especially the condominiums. Thank you.
Is it also going to be the trash enclosures for the vault business?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, because right now the vault is using the driveway.
The vault is using, does it have a rollaway? Is that what they have on the driveway?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so they would share?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's where you get another spot.
And I think that one of the things that the Downtown Association has been working on and with the city on is trying to improve the experience downtown. And one of the issues that has been identified is the appearance of some of the trash.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yuck.
Look, trash is as a fact of life.
Yeah.
So you got to move it. Whatever looks best often works best, especially if you can get it with a truck rather than haul it out, in my opinion. So I'm going to make a motion to recommend that we adopt the items as we're going to give you direction.
Yeah.
Right.
Going to adopt direction on the items that you mentioned, including the extra time, straighten out that they need, because we would do that for anybody. I'm not doing anything special for these guys. And also that we move the lot lines, because we would do that for anybody. And I think the trash thing speaks for itself. I would like to see the trash thing we're going to put. It's going to be screened, right?
Yeah.
Okay, it's not going to be just a rollaway.
Cinder block. Yeah.
Okay, so it will be screened. Okay, that's an improvement.
Something nice, please.
Okay, can I get a consensus on that?
I
Would
concur
you agree?
with Marty Richmond.
You agree?
I concur.
And you
No.
oppose? Okay, so we're 3-1 on that. So if the mayor hasn't fallen asleep, I think we're there. City of Hollister Successor Agency to Redevelopment. You want to see if he's awake, or did he leave? Yeah. They didn't do new business? Oh, okay. Did you fall asleep?
Absolutely.
Oh. You didn't miss anything, Vic. That's okay.
I didn't think I did. We're done, aren't we?
Where are we at?
We are down to, I think we're down to, are we down to K? I have my assistant. We down to K?
You guys jumped over
Okay.
I to handle the 2 400 blocks.
Oh, we did?
Go back to new business, and
New business and K.
There is no business on I or K, so is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Oh, yeah.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Aye, aye, aye.
First official, like, midnight meeting, guys.
Woo!
So I'm expecting to see you all at the HDA breakfast tomorrow morning at 7:30 at Payne's. HDA, I got their quarterly breakfast tomorrow morning.
I just need it for.
I won't be open.
I'm shopping up in 4 hours.